Assange charged with, both in terms of the criminal indictments and the publications he's charged for.
Sure. Well, thank you, Jeff, and thank you everyone for being here. It's wonderful to share a podium or a panel with these distinguished women and men who have worked with over many years on cross-border issues, and thank you both, Jodie and Tony, for coming. Julian faces 18 different charges, 17 under the Espionage Act, one for computer intrusion. But all of these charges all relate to receipt, possession, and publication of national defence information. And when we talk about the publications themselves, it relates to Guantanamo Bay files, collateral murder, the video and rules of engagement information that was published by WikiLeaks, which showed US forces shooting down civilians and journalists in Iraq, the Iraq and Afghan war logs, and the US diplomatic cables. So these are publications for which Julian's won journalism awards the world over, and he's been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize every year since the publications back in 2010 and 2011. For those publications, he faces, under this indictment, he faces 175 years in prison. Chip gave you a very punchy outline of some of the key points I think that we need to touch upon today, but just to make clear that all of mainstream media organisations, including WikiLeaks partners in publishing this material, The Guardian, New York Times, Le Monde, Pace, and Der Spiegel, The Washington Post, have all said that this is criminalising journalistic activity. There's been a lot of debates about whether Julian is or is not a journalist, and for the lawyers in the room, you understand that this is a completely moot point. The First Amendment protects journalistic activity. It is not defined by the individual, it is defined by their acts. And engaging in journalistic activity is exactly what WikiLeaks and what Julian Assange did and what he stands accused of. That's why we talk about the New York Times problem. So the Obama administration chose not to prosecute this case because of the so-called New York Times problem, which is precisely this. You cannot distinguish between the journalistic activity that Julian engaged in, which he stands accused of in this case, and for that which he's being prosecuted, and what the New York Times does every day. So this is criminalising journalism in the United States.
Thank you. And then, Jodie, I want to go to you. When we talk about these revelations, the collateral murder video, the Iraq and Afghan war logs, the Guantanamo files, and then Cablegate, were they really newsworthy revelations? Was there public interest to publishing them?
Absolutely, they were newsworthy revelations, and I think the fact that they were published in 5 and more of the leading international news outlets around the world demonstrates that. I just want to say a little bit from a personal perspective. You asked me to talk about whether they were of public interest, and public interest is often one of these things that can feel difficult to understand. In 2007, I was working as a Reuters journalist, or I worked for Reuters, and 2 of those individuals who were killed in the US Apache helicopter shooting were Reuters journalists, and I cannot tell you what it feels like to watch 2 of your colleagues being murdered on a video. Not just killed or attacked once, but in the case of Saeed, attacked, wounded. Someone came to pick him up in a van. It was a dad with his 2 kids in the car on the way to the school who stopped to pick up a wounded man, and the US fired again and killed Saeed. If that doesn't tell you that that's a public interest story, I don't know what does. Those are the stories, one of the stories that came out of the WikiLeaks leaks. There's absolutely a public interest, but more importantly, this case is crucial for press freedom in this country. The US prides itself on the First Amendment. The US holds itself up as the defender, the global defender of a free press, and yet here we have a case in which an individual risks over 100 years in jail for doing, as Jen said, exactly the kind of work that we expect of journalists, the kind of work that Daniel Ellsberg was engaged in when he exposed US activities in Vietnam, or when we heard of illegal activities undertaken by the US in propping up right-wing regimes in Latin America. We rely on this kind of activity, the obtaining of information that governments would rather keep secret, to be able to make public, so that we, the public, can know what governments are doing supposedly in our name. The information that Julian was responsible for publishing shows evidence of US state criminality and human rights abuses. That is in the public interest. And if he